Hello, I'm Jo Boyce, and in this tutorial we are looking at the Chris Rollinson setting of Hail Mary as recorded on the Boyce and Stanley album The Promise.
Ave Maria.
Now, generally our liturgical version of this song, the version that we play within the context of the liturgy, is shorter and has less flourish than the studio album version. The studio album version has both verses and refrain, and then an instrumental verse and a lovely French horn part, and then a refrain repeated at the end. In the context of the liturgy, you'd probably need just the two verses, and maybe even the first time you do the refrain, you can just do it half a refrain instead of the repeat. So that's just a little note about liturgical sensitivity. And so let's look at the chords, the basic chords first. The song is in F major, and on the guitar I would do that with my capo in the 3rd fret and play D shapes. So throughout this tutorial I'll be speaking as if we were in D major. I'll be referring to D and to certain notes that I'm playing as I move between the chords, but my reference to those notes will be out by a minor third, so the notes will actually be a minor third higher than I say it. So if I call this an A, if I call this an F sharp rather, it's actually an A in terms of concert pitch. So that might be a little bit confusing, but it's hard to use concert pitch notes while referring to the capo chords. So I'm going to treat it as if the whole thing is in D major, even though we are actually in F. So let's look at the basic chords. We start with this D over F sharp, and then an A over G, which I play by barring those three notes and putting the G up here. Then rising to the G, then the A, and then the D major 9 is just a D with an E in it. Since on the guitar really there's not much between D major 9 and D major 2nd. That second note is the E. It'd be slightly different in terms of a keyboard inversion. And then we've got the B minor, G major 7th is G with an F sharp in it, lovely chord, and then the G over A I tend to play like this. It depends on how you play your G. If you play your G like this, then you're looking for the A bass, which is that open 5th string, and then the A over B. This time I'm borrowing my A notes, so the three strings that I would make my A chord on ordinarily, I bar them with my ring finger, and then I'm using my middle finger to add the B bass there in the 2nd fret, so that's an A over B. A lot of these chords have a different root notes, and that's a kind of very piano style really, but it makes them very rich, makes the accompaniment very, very rich, and sort of lovely harmonies to work with there, and suspensions and things like that. So let's sing and play through that first verse, and then I'll just unpack what I'm doing a little bit. Hail Mary, the Lord is with thee. You are most blessed, Our Lady full of grace, for you as God became a man. So I'm just putting in some little flourishes and little passing notes and runs in between the chords as I change chord. The most obvious one is the move from the A up to the D. So I start on the A, and then I move up to what's a G over B really, and then to an A over C sharp. But in that run I'm really only concerned about the bass note and the top notes on the 2nd string, because that also gives me a little bit of the melody. The Lord is, and then I'm up to the D, and that run from the D, from the A to the G over B to the A over C sharp up to a D major, I use that all the time, and in the other direction as well. So it's kind of a it's a bit of vocabulary, if you like, a bit of guitar vocabulary that you can apply whenever you need to make that move. And similarly, when we're moving from the B to a G, then it's quite instinctive for me to put in that A bass, even though it's not there in the music. Let's have a quick look at the refrain then. So, chords we've met already, the D over F sharp, the G, G over A, then the D. And then as we go through the A over C sharp, really all I do is add the C sharp bass, and I keep that ninth there in the chord. So it's kind of more of an A suspended over the C sharp. But it means I don't have to move my fingers quite as much. I get the C sharp bass in, then I'm down to the B minor, drop my index finger to get the A bass in for the B minor over A, and then instead of playing a straight E7, what I do is I move the D over F sharp shape up a tone, so up 2 frets, and that gives me an E over G sharp. And I like that G sharp in the bass because then when I move to the G minor, I get that nice little chromatic movement down the semitone, and instead of playing a full G minor like this, I just play the G as I was playing the G sharp. I just move that down, and then I do a sort of D major 7th shape with my index finger there on those top 3 strings, which would have been barred anyway if I were making the full G minor shape. So it's a nice little movement, and it up there in that inversion it adds interest, and then we're down to the D. Okay, so let's just run through that again. And the trick here really with this is to not overplay, to play very gently, to play the arpeggios and let them ring, and then only fill the space when you need to kind of lead into something else. So those are the basics with just a few little flourishes. If you want to get a bit more advanced, you'll notice that you can start to put a little bit of the melody of the verse in around these 2 frets in the D shapes mostly. So I'm just going to show you that very quickly. It's quite it's quite advanced really, but let's just see if I can show you how that works. So the melody starts there on the root. So I sort of gliss up to it and emphasise that note when I get there by picking it a little bit harder. Okay, so let me just show you a little bit what I did there, and you know, that's something you can spend hours trying to perfect yourself. So that's all on the 2nd string, just going down. But when I get to the B, I've also got to put the G bass in, like that, for the change of chord. And then I've already shown you the movement from the A. And then we want that top note for the with thee in the D major 9th. So that's in the 3rd fret, 3rd string, 2nd fret for that bottom note. the scale, starting in the same place, that note that would be a D if this were an open chord. So that F sharp, or it's an A really, but in the terms of the chord shape it's an F sharp. Yeah, so it's all around those notes there. So with a little bit of practice you can work out where to emphasize the picking pattern to get the melody in there. And hopefully a little bit of a close-up on the hands. You'll be able to see what's happening. So I hope that's helpful for you. And you know, these little flourishes just make the accompaniment, the guitar accompaniment, more interesting. It's certainly more interesting than just playing it and strumming all the way through like that, although there's a place for that sort of rhythm approach as well. So try it, let me know how you go. Take care, God bless.
Hail Mary, the Lord is with thee. You are most blessed, Our Lady